Hey gang, Scott Davenport here and welcome to InPost. Thanks for joining me today. So this is a continuation of In the Field from earlier this week. If you saw that video, I went out with just my iPhone 6 Plus and did a mobile-only photo shoot. Now the 6 Plus is not the most advanced smartphone on the planet. The camera's okay, the sensor's okay, and the raw files that came out are pretty good, but there were some challenges with the processing and a couple of things that I really noticed. I thought I'd dive into those in this video. So if you're processing photos out of your camera phone, then you got some ideas of potentially some of the challenges you'll face and some things you can try to do to fix them. One of the first things I noticed is that in the basic panel, the defaults were not all zeroed, and I'll show you what I mean here. Sometimes I'd even get a camera profile, but most of the time the whites were popped up, blacks were reduced, clarity was increased. And this was all just happening, I'm guessing something where there's a camera profile and it's picking that stuff up and Lightroom's applying, kind of a camera default as opposed to Adobe Color. And I would have almost expected it to be something like, one of the camera profiles being picked up to set these settings. And so, the double click, the double tap or the double click on the whites or on clarity, like if I were to push this around, my normal, let me get this back to 0, that wasn't working. And probably something to do with how, what time of day I was shooting these. The whites, they're just way too hot. I mean, these rocks up here are just, really, really strong. And so trying to quickly zero things out, even if I were to do like an option reset, it's resetting it to these baked in defaults. And, since I don't do too much with my mobile phone, this surprised me. So that's just one thing to watch for, is your starting point may be different depending on the the camera that you're using. Another thing I noticed is highlight recovery was more challenging with the iPhone shots. And again, I'm using an iPhone 6 here, so older phone. But I've had to pull the highlights down. Now I'm shooting at pretty bright conditions. This is mid-morning. But really I'm watching like this wall here on this house, really having to pull those highlights down. And that's of course affecting the entire scene. And I don't want to get so like dingy that it starts to impact the walls, impact the rest of the scene. So I found myself having to reach for much more localized adjustments and doing the highlight adjustments there. Let me invert that so we're targeting the wall. And this became much more necessary. I'll almost always reach for localized adjustments when I'm processing, but I had to turn to them earlier in the processing because highlights were particularly a challenge. Now that may be a combination of the nature of the raw files I get out of the mobile phone, as well as the time of day that I was shooting. One of the things I found in many of the photos was a higher amount of noise than I was anticipating. And in this particular photo here, this one had it quite prominently. And I'm going to check the info on this. So I'm shooting at f2.2, ISO 100. I'm not expecting there to be a lot of noise at all. But especially in the sky area. Now I can't zoom in super far in this because this is a pretty small file, but you can see some of this, just this color noise and this weird, this purplish stuff going on, but very prominent up in the sky. And I'm honestly wondering, if I just didn't clean the phone. The phone goes in and out of my pocket all the time. I'm picking up lint and dust and whatever else. But what can we do about this? What can we do about the noise? Well, certainly in the detail pane in Lightroom, I have played with noise reduction. I've increased the detail just to keep some of the details inside the pillars there. But if I pull this back down for a second, I'm losing something for the photo overall. So I needed to keep the detail up. But this is certainly more in the color noise space. So if we play around with color noise and detail, trying to pull that around or play with it, watching the changes. Certainly pushing it up higher is bad. It gets very, very chunky up in there. Can pull it back down. Smoothness, we can try and increase that a little bit. Not helping too much, so let's reset that to default. So from here, what would I do? I'd turn to a more localized adjustment and let's grab a gradient. And let's just drag it down about halfway, because there's some sky on the other side of this photo here, but we'll concentrate on this area to see what's going on. So with just watching this patch of blue sky, what can we do in the sliders here? We can take clarity negative. That's going to make things smoother. Now, right now I'm affecting the entire photo. I know that that's not what I want, but we're just focusing on this area here. That did help quite a bit. We can do some more noise reduction. See what that does for us. Clicking back and forth. Certainly pushing it up farther is helping. Defringing is not, I'm going to try it just because of the weird purple stuff going on up in the sky there. But I'm not expecting that to really help. There's really no edges up in the sky there. We can take sharpness down. So again, further softening things. Sharpness is having a little bit of an effect, so we'll pull that down there. Now, I'm wondering how much of this will come through in video because of video compression, and we're talking about noise, and sometimes things get smoothed out. But really quickly, just doing a before and after on this, before that graduated filter, we're going to see some exposure shifts as well. But look how much grit and grain is up in here. And then after, okay, that's a lot better. Now we just need to limit it to the sky, and we can use range masks to do that. So we'll open up, we'll get a color range mask, eyedropper, and just draw a box right up in the sky there. Put my picker away, press the O key so we can see what the mask looks like. And so it's much more limited to just the bluish tones. And we got some blue bouncing off of these columns. That's to be expected. There's a lot of blue bouncing around the scene. We can reduce the range a little bit and just dial that in for only the sky. And all that added up before and after. So this is before the noise reduction. You can see that's pretty prominent noise there. And then after. So I still have noise in the scene, and it's there. I'm not going to be able to eliminate all of it. And I was a little surprised, especially with the blue areas, that this was coming through so much with the mobile phone. I want to go borrow one of my family members' phones and take a few more photos, because they've got newer phones than I do, and I'm curious as how much of this is the size of the sensor versus how much is just the fact that this is an older device. Well, those are a few of the things that I noticed straight away when working with the raw files coming out of the iPhone. And I guess I was really just surprised by the noise. That was a surprising one in those sky areas, having to clean that up. And just overall in general, the photos feeling a little bit grainy. So I am curious to go try this again with two changes. One, a better time of day, so the light isn't as harsh. But two, with a newer mobile device, my iPhone 6 Plus. A few years ago, that was state of the art, but things have gotten a whole lot better since then. And I want to see if there is a better or a stronger richness in there. And maybe also with a newer phone, I can play around with the Apple, I guess it's pronounced HEIF or HEIF format, and see what that offers as well. So, I don't know when that'll happen. I'm not going to go upgrade my phone tomorrow, but I might borrow one of my family members. They've got newer stuff than little old me. I'll put my money still into my mirrorless system. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video. That's going to do it for this week's In Post. If you got questions about photography, drop them in the comments below or shoot me a message through my website. And until next time, my name's Scott Davenport, and happy shooting.